Okay, good afternoon, all. It is Columbus Day, October 10th, 2022, and this is Bonds for New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Muckraker. And today, what I want to talk about and discuss, I was going to do a letter about this, but I decided instead to do a video. So last Tuesday, I attended a workshop in regards to Portrait of a Learner. This was hosted by SAU 21, which includes Wanacunnet High School here in Hampton, as well as Northampton, Seabrook, Hampton Falls. I'm not quite sure if there's any other towns. But so I attended it, and needless to say, I was a little bit disappointed when I arrived and I saw most of the people were there were people that were affiliated with the schools or were definitely pro having this type of philosophy or political narrative, whatever you want to call it, part of the schools. So I decided that I was going to sit down and listen and be someone who could report on what her experience was, since there was a lot of people that I wish were there but were not there for whatever reason. They could not make it. So first, I want to encourage people who do not agree with some of this stuff that they really should reach out to the superintendent. It's actually the assistant superintendent of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. I received an email from him last Thursday, a thank you, and he describes the process they're going through, which I'll talk about later, but he encourages people to reach out to him. So he is the assistant superintendent. His number is 603-926-8992. So I encourage anyone who might not agree with this to call him up, explain why they couldn't make it, and put their 2 cents in. So first off, before I attended this, I reached out to my education guru, I call her, Anne-Marie Banfield, which I'm sure many of you know. And I explained to her that I was going to be going to the Portrait of a Learner visioning process to inform parents, teachers, faculty, staff, community of strategic planning efforts. On September 19th, there was a letter from the assistant superintendent to inform the parents and SAU community about these efforts. So Anne-Marie Banfield referred me back to a Granite Grok article she had written in April of 2022. Now, this is a quote. "Parents need to know that Portrait of a Graduate is a national program created by an Ohio-based company called Battelle for Kids, being used to fundamentally transform the purpose of U.S. education. It shifts curriculum, assessment, school accountability, and data collection away from academics and towards social emotional learning." A couple other points that was brought up. There's something called PAIR, which is Partnerships in Education and Resilience. It's some type of a mental health screening. This is to promote the positive social emotional development of our school community. It's something that will rate the child each year, and it will follow them. The rating will follow them. It is stated by the SAU that data is secured accordingly to the federal FERPA, which is Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Now, this is all from Anne-Marie Banfield. However, this law was gutted by Obama in 2014. Now anyone claiming to be a researcher can access the data. So, that leaves a little bit of cause for concern. Some of the other points that Anne-Marie wanted to make up about Battelle and the Portrait of a Graduate are: there's the Aurora Institute and Knowledge Works. These are the companies that work toward mass data collection of children's values, attitudes, and behaviors, aka mental health, with a company called the Data Quality Campaign, which is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And state and local governments can use federal funding for education data. So, another reason to take more federal funds, like the billions that were accepted by the state by Governor Sununu, the Executive Council, and the Joint Legislative Fiscal Committee. So we have more strings attached. So, a lot of people ask me, why do we have CRT in school, in the schools in Hampton? Well, I'm going to tell you there's a couple reasons. One, because we have accepted federal grant money, and we have been accepting it. This was much before COVID. That requires, by taking the money, we have to teach certain ways and teach certain philosophies, some of which are very, very political and completely unacceptable for a school to be shoving down children's throats. And the second reason, so we know, these governments have been coming in long time. We've been taking these funds, and that's why kids were wearing masks when no one else had to. It's all part of the strings attached. And what Governor Sununu has done is he's now accepted these federal funds statewide to pretty much affect every aspect of our lives, how we live every day, how our businesses are run. And I'm pretty confident that we have not seen the total effects of accepting those federal funds yet. But all we really need to do as a people, as citizens of this state, is stand up and say enough is enough. So that was Anne-Marie's recap for me before I attended. So this was last Tuesday, and they broke us up. They broke us up into tables. And I'm going to tell you, the table that I was at had a teacher from Seabrook Elementary, and also there was a student, a senior from Winnacunnet. They were both very, very accommodating and explaining any questions we had. The entire table was willing to listen to any type of inquiry or suggestion that any of us had. So like I said, I was disappointed that the majority of people there were definitely in support of doing this in the schools. And I'm going to tell you straight out, some of the discussions we had at the table, I agree with. For example, one of them was getting the community, the children, out more to enjoy. Hampton has a bunch of natural, beautiful resources outside: the ocean, Mary Bachelor Pond, the town forest. We have loads and slews of natural beauty, as there's a lot of other communities here on the seacoast. So I would definitely agree that hands-on outside learning, get the kids out of the school, out of the classroom, that should definitely be encouraged. I agree with that. So they sat us down, and one of the first slides they showed was specific to SAU 21. They did say this was a statewide effort, Portrait of a Learner process, but these puzzle pieces, I guess they called them, were specifically done for SAU 21. So the process is, again, social emotional learning. These are the puzzle pieces: social emotional learning, a tiered support structure, equity and access, community connections. Okay, definitely can see that one. Competency-based education, transition planning, school-wide expectations, career pathways, and habits of learning. So, obviously every kid has their own habit of learning. So I think that is what they're referring to there. So social emotional learning is for children to learn how to self-regulate their emotions and identify their emotions. That was what was talked about. Then we broke down into groups. So the purpose of the groups was part one, the student vision, 15 minutes. So like I said, we had a senior from Winnacunnet, she seemed very well educated. She realized that she was, lucky, as opposed to some who it might not be as easy to educate themselves or to, have opportunities that, she's worked hard for and has taken advantage of, where some students have not. One of the things she kept referring to was ELOs. Now, I didn't know what an ELO was, so I asked, and she told me that it was an extended learning opportunity. So to me, that sounded almost like doing an internship, but I'm sure that it's done quite differently now. She brought up, how a lot of students have a difficult time adjusting to the learning process. But so the first part we were supposed to focus on, our group, we probably had 7 or 8 people at the table. What skills should our graduates know and be able to do when they graduate? So this is looking out into 2027. What traits and mindsets do students need to be successful, regardless of the area they choose to pursue? What are the hopes, aspirations, and dreams that our community has for our young people? What skills and mindsets will be necessary in a rapidly changing and complex world? How will we be able to measure the students have achieved these skills, and what does it look like? What are the skills and traits that community members take pride in and hope to pass on to their students and children? So we brainstormed about that. They had these big pads of paper where we wrote down all our thoughts and ideas. Now, like I said, I was there mostly. I listened. I didn't really contribute too much. I let them know when I agreed with what their discussions were. And I asked questions. And so we went through, that was part 1, the student vision. So part 2 was facilities and programs and resources. Okay, in 2027, what does it mean for our facilities and programs to be future ready? What connections do we need to make between communities and school? What partnerships, business, community organizations, research, or higher education will we need to make our schools future ready? What academic programs will we need? One thing I agreed we talked about at the table was how we think it's a good idea that they start teaching foreign languages in the lower grades. I guess some schools do, but it's not consistently done. Because I know I took Spanish in high school, and I can't quite remember if I took it. I think I took it in 7th and 8th grade. I went to Sacred Heart here in Hampton. But when I got to college, now I went to BU, which most of the people I hung around with, they were not American. They were European, they were Arab, they were from all over. And most of them spoke automatically. They grew up doing it 3 to 4 languages. So I would definitely agree that we should maybe start teaching a foreign language, preferably Latin, in the lower grades, so that by the time you get to high school, you are truly comfortable, and maybe even comfortable enough to pick up like Italian, Spanish, French, something like that. So again, we can have American kids speaking 2, 3, 4 languages when they're 19, 20 years old. I think that would be a good achievement to strive for. What communication strategies will we need to consider? And what is our vision of an educator that is preparing students for college, career, and life? Okay, so the one concern I have with this one is, what connections do we need to make between communities and school? And what partnerships, business, community organizations, research, higher ed? Ladies and gentlemen, the problem with Hampton, and as I said, a lot of people ask me, why do we have CRT in Hampton schools? Well, the third reason, so the first reason we know is the government accepting Fed funds. The second reason is no one having the courage or the audacity that is currently elected or running for election in 2022 to state that those 2 are the reasons of the problem, because that points fingers at the director, the governor, the executive council, many state reps, many state senators that are on the Republican side of the ticket. And they don't want to, we don't want to end up with Democrats. Okay, well, let me tell you, 2-party system, that's a fallacy. Republicans and Democrats, you know what that is? That's a ping pong ball game, where what does the ball do? Back and forth, back and forth. One side drops it, it goes to the other side. But what always happens? Back and forth, back and forth. So we never get anywhere. Facilities, programs, and resources. Hampton has allowed its elected leaders in the schools, planning board, board of selectmen, anything elected, any appointed commission has allowed the Chamber of Commerce to directly intervene between private sectors, the private sector, and the town government and the town schools. Why on earth does the Chamber of Commerce have to get involved with education, local education? I'll tell you why. To get the agenda pushed through. And that has happened in Hampton. I'm not sure where else in the state it's happened, but I'm pretty sure with Sununu as our governor and Shaheen in D.C., it's happened all over the place. Remember, the government and businesses working together. Do you know what that is? I call it socialism, corporate socialism. It's a form of socialism. But it's fascism. And our governor condones it. And every single person that stands next to him, with him, or supports him in any way, they condone it as well. The Chamber of Commerce is why the CRT agenda has happened so rapidly here at SAU 90 and now SAU 21. There is no coincidence. The Chamber of Commerce locally is pushing the national agenda of the Chamber of Commerce, which is cheap illegal labor. They talk out of both sides of their ass, and they support both sides of the aisles depending on what they need. So, advocates for the Chamber of Commerce who call themselves conservatives, they're not conservative. They are pushing progressive agendas in this town and in this state. And again, all condoned by Sununu. Okay, so the last part, so that's why we have this crap going on in our schools. Federal funds, Sununu, the Executive Council, the Joint Legislative Fiscal Committee, a pacified New Hampshire Republican Party, and the Chamber of Commerce. Those are your bullets as to why. Part 3, areas for growth. Consider a brainstorm around students, facilities, programs. What gaps do you currently see between our vision and our current services? Well, this is where we get comfortable with how much money are we going to spend. And someone said it at the table, funding, the F word. So like I said, it was disappointing to not see more people on my page, I guess. But also, I want to say that I agreed with a lot of things that the people at my table said, especially coming from a student. We do have to realize that the government and Tyrant Sununu did shut the state down. And the first thing he did was close the schools. And that has affected the children of this town, of this state, and as we know, of the nation. And we do have to figure out ways to accommodate what they have to gone through, both physically and mentally, at home and in the school, or not being in school. That has definitely affected them. So we need to be a little open there, in my view, but we can definitely take advantage of these workshops that they're having by going and voicing our concerns. And so, like I said, a few days later, I received a thank you and the next steps from the Assistant Superintendent at SAU 21, Dave Hobbs. And he said, thank you for your time and energy, sincere feedback at Tuesday's workshop. And I want to provide you with an idea of our steps moving forward. So they're in the process of transcribing the feedback from your discussion and overlaying it with feedback from staff, students, and admin, the bureaucrats of the admin. Once we develop shared priorities and themes, we'll reach out to the groups in order to validate our information. So they're thinking October, November timeframe. 2, this winter will be a position to reflect our findings to the public at large with more refined language and ideally student-generated graphics. Shared themes and commonalities will serve as a compass vision moving forward as we work to actualize the portrait. For example, emphasize our successes and address our gaps in the coming years, undoubtedly influencing budget, curriculum planning, and student services. The committee will be actively communicating throughout. However, if you have any questions or feedback, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Dave Hobbs, his phone number again, 603-926-8992. His email is dhobbs, all lowercase, at sau21.org. So if you are a parent, a member of the community that is concerned or has questions, please reach out to him before they issue what, they're planning on issuing this probably within the next couple of weeks. So if you have anything to add to it, and I'm sure they can provide you with the presentation that was shown to all of us last week, that is all I have. So it's a little long, but I think that it might be easier to get people to watch this. And like I said, they're going to do this. So if we care about our children or we care about our community, then we should really need to step up and we need to get involved. And if they're having these events at times that are not conducive to our work schedules, family life, whatever it is, then you need to reach out to them and tell them that you need an alternative day or time where you can attend and be a part of this process. That's all I got. Oh, and real quick, tomorrow's Truth Bomb Tuesday. I just want to give you a quick little preview. We're going to be discussing several items. Number one is why state and national candidates who stand with Sununu and his minions will not save us. Number two, we're going to talk about Grazing the Surface's recent article, Stealing Elections in New Hampshire. Number three, we're going to talk about cancel culture that started on a Hampton selectman back in 2020. I'll have to go back and look. And we already touched upon this a little bit, but the last piece is the Chamber of Commerce and how it's actually turned Hampton into a fascist form of government. All right, that's it. Have a great day. Happy Columbus Day.